So you started your fat loss phase, you're losing weight and excited about the progress, but then out of nowhere, it stops. You haven't done anything different, so what gives? You've hit a weight loss plateau, but don't worry, this was inevitable, and I'm gonna help you break through it today by explaining why it happens, how to know if you're truly in a plateau or not, and how to start losing weight again. So the reason weight loss plateaus happen is because of something called adaptive thermogenesis. As you diet, your body's gonna make some alterations hormonally and metabolically that cause your metabolism to slow down to adapt to what's happening. This isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's your body doing its job, is trying to keep you alive. Think about it this way. If you just did the same thing and your body never adapted and slowed down its metabolism and you didn't make any changes, you would just keep losing weight until you eventually starve to death. So you need these adaptations to happen. So you at 200 pounds isn't going to need as many calories as you at 230 pounds. So you don't want to freak out and get upset when it happens. This is what happens to almost everybody. You get all emotional, you decide it's not worth the effort and you're going to quit, even though logically you know you're not going to keep losing. You tell your friends they're not going to keep losing and that they're going to see plateaus and that it's normal. But when it comes to yourself, you get super emotional and you quit. Do not let this happen. Kind of brings me into the topic of, okay, how do you truly know you're in a weight loss plateau? Because a lot of people seem to think something's a plateau that's not. Meaning, just because you're not losing weight as fast as you want to lose it doesn't mean you've hit a plateau. Take, for instance, my big transformation I did about 10 years ago where I went from 210 pounds down to 178 pounds. I lost on average 0.6 pounds per week. But nobody ever came to me afterwards and said, oh, wow, that took way too long, so it certainly wasn't worth the effort. Like, no, of course, it's always worth it if you get there. Nobody gets to the end and says, took too long, wasn't worth it. So I typically say you want to lose between about 0.5 to 1% of your weight on average per week. It doesn't have to be that fast. And most people really don't fall into that 1%. That's actually a pretty quick pace. And when you're doing weight, make sure you're taking weekly averages. Weigh yourself every day, first thing in the morning after going to the bathroom and before eating or drinking anything, and then take an average for the week and compare that week by week. The problem with a weekly weigh-in is your weight fluctuates on a daily basis up to several pounds, and it's all water weight. And if you just do a weekly weigh-in and you're just comparing that one snapshot in time, it can show no progress, even though your average is showing great progress. But also understand it's not just about weight. Don't get too tied to that scale. You also want to pay attention to pictures. Take them and put them side by side on a screen. You have to compare. You see yourself every day. You're going to assume things aren't happening, and they could be. You also want to take measurements. The main one being across the belly button, because that's basically all body fat. And then you want to look at those every single week. And if there's movement in any of those things, that means you're still seeing progress. And you almost never actually see all those things all at one time. Now, once you haven't seen progress in any of those three things for at least 2 weeks, preferably 3, now you've hit a plateau and it's time to make some adjustments. Although, before I get into how to adjust, there's one thing you want to do before you go there just to make sure. In the beginning, you're excited, you're all over your plan, you're sticking to things well, you can't wait to see results, so motivation is high. But as things go on for a while, that motivation starts to wane. It can get really easy to start being more lax with things and not paying as close attention. And now you've hit a plateau, not because the plan isn't working anymore, because you're not really following the plan you were before. So before you make these changes, it can be a good idea to take a week or two and just make sure you're being spot on. Make sure you're back to measuring your food on a food scale and not taking extra things that aren't being accounted for, and making sure you're getting all your activity in consistently and not doing things like these big cheat meals that are throwing you off plan. And be consistent and see, and sometimes that alone will get things working again. But if not, your body's adapted. Now you need to make some changes. You need to either reduce your calories and or increase your energy expenditure. Usually it's a combination of the two. However, most people would just adjust their calories right away to get things moving. I highly recommend you don't do that quite yet and first take a diet break. Diet breaks, now typically, it's when you go back to maintenance and give yourself a week or two. And this can be a great tool to help you from hitting plateaus as often because it does help with hormones, metabolism, things like that. But now you're already at maintenance. So how do you go back to maintenance to take a diet break? Understand, the body is very dynamic and complex. And if you've truly plateaued, I would still take a diet break first. You're going to increase your calories around 300, reduce your cardio by maybe 30 to 50%, and give your body a reprieve. And I'm telling you, most people actually don't even gain during this phase. Your body kind of upregulates its hormones, metabolism, you recover better. And then when you come back to adjust, you're in a better spot, then the body responds really well. Whereas if you just make that slash right away, sometimes the body still wants to fight you a bit. So this is a great strategy to really make sure you break through that weight loss plateau. But anyways, now it's time to make the adjustment. How do you do this? Well, first, what if you aren't tracking your calories right now, so you don't know how many calories you're eating? What I would do is spend the next week, keep eating the same way you've been eating, but now you're gonna track it diligently consistently and see what it looks like. Take an average for those 7 days, and now you know that's roughly what you've been doing. From there, I usually say drop your calories around 10%, but anywhere between usually about 100 to 200 calories. The bigger you are, the more you probably want to make a bigger increase. And then you could also increase some cardio. You can start going for more walks, increase some more traditional forms of cardio, and this can really help. Now, when you're reducing your calories, make sure you don't take it from protein. In fact, speaking of protein, this is another thing you can do to help break the plateau. If you're not getting at least 1 gram per pound of your body weight in protein, increasing your protein, even keeping calories the same, could be enough to help get things moving again, because protein, it has such a high thermic effect to food. It's very powerful. So at a minimum, don't take away from protein when you reduce your calories, or you can even try to increase it some, and that could help even more. Now, let's just say you've done all these things I've talked about, and now you're at the point where you're still not seeing results. Your calories are really low. You're doing a lot of activity. You can't reasonably make any more adjustments. What exactly should you do? Well, what I want you to do is check out this video next, and it's going to cover 6 things you can do if you're barely eating but still can't lose weight. So check that out next, and I'll see you in that other video.